Hey everyone, today I am going to kind of explain why Diversity Cut is terrible and, why Ava is not a tier 7 deck, right? Because I think not a lot of people understand Diversity Cut and how it's supposed to work, or really understand tournaments in general when it comes to at least the WGP ones in Japan. So I'm going to kind of just explain it to you all. And then we'll also talk about the trail results as well, which might reflect the current meta a bit better, at least in Japan, right? So first off, let's talk about this infamous pie chart that Fuzzy has released, collating all the results from, Daivangasai 2023. This is the latest official tournament. And as you can see, this is Block A. Ava is only represented like 3 out of top 16, right? This is teams, right? They always run teams in Japan, but only 3 Avas out of 16. So, wow. Pretty bad. Format is so diverse. Insane. This is also played in Festival Collection meta. So, you see the 2 ballistas, right? Crazy. That's perfect. This is the perfect metagame we've always been playing. Let's look at Block B, because in Japan, at least for Daivangasai, they had 2 blocks, right? And in Block B, wow, look, Ava, absolutely terrible, right? 1 out of 16. Look at Kruger, 9, that's crazy. Well, Lista did better than Ava, right? The time of Ava is up. Sell your decks. Sell your Ava decks. It is bad, right? This is a terrible deck. Even Messiah is better. Okay, so let's keep this here. Now that you've understood the truth that Ava is not good, let's talk about Japanese tournaments, and especially in WGP/Daivangasai. So this is just WGP in general. So unlike English tournaments where we have Swiss rounds and then top cut, right? They have something similar. They have something similar in WGP. They call it the prelims, and then they call it, after you're done with the prelims, then it's like the top cut, right? But the prelims aren't Swiss. They are double elimination. So that basically is, if you lose twice, you are out of the tournament. And then in terms of the number of rounds they play, because they run double elim, they only play 5 rounds of Swiss, right? So compared to the West, if you live in like America, for example, where you get a lot of players, you might be playing 8 rounds of Swiss, sometimes even 9 rounds of Swiss before a top 8 cut. They're only playing 5, and they're cutting at the X1s. Yeah, so totally different scenario. They also play in teams. Like, I think in the second half, the second half of WGP, like WGP Season 2 in 2023 is apparently going to be singles. But they will likely have a Diversity Cut as well. Diversity Cut has been a thing for WGP for a very, very long time. But yeah, this is, so basically, they run a double elim prelim tournament that cuts at X1, well, not cuts at X1, but they only run 5 rounds. If you reach X1, if you get to X2, you're out. At X1, you're subject to Diversity Cut, and then in X0s, you just make it in, and, there's a top 16 cut. And then, based on the number of players, they will cut it into, like, multiple blocks. I don't think there's ever been a 3-block tournament. For Weiss, there was, but they ran, like, singles, for example. But for Daivangasai, they had, like, 550 teams, I think, was the max, and I think 525 showed up around that number, and they cut into 2 blocks where each probably had around like 200-ish, 250-ish teams. So yeah, that's how it broke down. And the Diversity Cut is very, very harsh, right? As soon as you go X1, you're basically at the mercy of other teams and what they brought. So we'll just bring up a picture, right? Because I actually took pictures of, the standings after the prelims, right? So here we have a picture of the standings, and as you can see here, up to 6th place, and it's generally around the same, right? Because they always cut at the same time, and the tournament's size is usually always maxed out, so usually it's always around the same number. Top 6 went undefeated after round 5. So these guys all make it into top cut, no questions asked. no questions asked. And then to fill out the rest of the top 16 slots, they start picking from X1s, and they'll fill like the rest of the top 16 slots with something called a diversity cut, right? So everything in orange made it through. Now, what is diversity cut? So basically, you know how in Vanguard standard D format, you have a ride line. They will pick for every grade 3 that is used in that ride line by an X0 player. If you use the same grade 3, you will get a point for your team. And like golf, lower points is better. If you have 0 points, that means none of the X0 players used a grade 3 in their ride line that you used. So you will get 0 points, and then you will fare better in diversity. You will have priority, right? So for example, top place team in Swiss brought Alter Ego Messiah, they brought Gandiva, and they brought Hexaorb Aquamarine, right? So if you brought if you brought like Ebisu, Ava, and like let's say like Zorga, right? You will gain 0 points, and you will be at the top of this chart. Yeah. Unless maybe you brought one Gandiva instead of the Zorga, that means you get 1 point, and you'll have slightly less priority, but you will likely make it. But this applies to the whole X0. So if we look at the X0s right now, if anyone bought a Messiah, a Gandiva, Hexaorb Aquamarine, right? Bear in mind, you know, you can bring the old Hexaorb, and that will be fine. You brought the End. If you bought original Hexaorb, okay, so second place team brought original Hexaorb. Chronojet Dragon, it's pretty big. Youthberg, right? Youthberg. This team brought a Maelstrom as well. Then there's the Ebisu pop-up. Only one Ebisu, it seems, for the whole of the top undefeated top cuts. And then there is also one more Ava here as well, and a Flagberg Dragon. So X0 was actually, there was quite a lot of decks, right? Quite a lot of decks. But you can see that there was like only one Ebisu and one Ava. So that means anyone who brought them already gets 1 point, right? If you brought the meta, like for example, if you brought what would be considered a meta build, which is just you bring a Ebisu and an Ava on your team, and then your third place slot could be anything, you're automatically having 2 points. That means you have a way less chance of topping. And then, you know, if you actually brought, like, if your third was like a Hexorb, you're just done, right? Just go home, right? So let's see what actually made it. So, well, that one X0. So the X0s are Phantom Blaster Dragon Overlord, Unite Dianos, so Heroes, and then Zorga, right? Zorga did not go X0 at all. So basically, any team who bought a Zorga is like good times. They're already like at the top. The second one was Alessial, Felty, Rosette, and Willista. So all the new stuff and not represented X0, they automatically make it through. And for example, that's just how it is. If we go through, I think, you know, if you saw the results and all that, you will basically know what the top 16 is. But if you look at the column of the right, this is basically your placing at the end of round 5. So of course for the X0s, it's just 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, right? You know, they just got in because they went undefeated. But then look at what came through. So the highest priority team came 26th in the standing. Then the next one was 30th, and then 33rd. And yeah, so basically, there's a 34 here as well. So if the pages only show up to 24, right? There's only up to 24, this thing here. So there could be a lot more teams that just aren't shown. That didn't make it. But if you look at the teams that didn't make it, for example, so this is a team with priority 2, right? So they brought a Zorga, which was okay, but then they also brought a Chronojet and the Ebisu, so they're done, right? And then if you kind of go down more, right, you know, here is a meta team, kind of a meta team. So they brought Ebisu, Ava, and the Willista as their third, which is pretty normal. You know, Willista would be like, if you think of the top 2 decks, Ebisu and Ava, then Willista will be the third. But because, you know, Ava and Ebisu, you only need one that went undefeated. They got 2 points, and they just basically finished. And then let's look at this guy. This team was actually ranked 7th, but because they brought the End, Chronojet, and Youthberg, right? Youthberg. They basically chose 3 decks that are confirmed not to be in the top tier. They ended up being 7th, but because all of their decks were used by X-Zeros, they got priority 3, basically, and then they just don't make it. That's just how it is. They're just done, right? But, you know, in a normal environment where there was no diversity cut, they would have just made top cut, right? Because they even if it was cut to top 8, they would have made it. So in Block A, there was definitely at least up to 34 teams, right? There might be more, but they just might not be shown on this page. But as you can see as well, let's look at the amount of Avers that make it. So all right, so 1, 2, 3, 4. 4 Avers are already shown on the pages that didn't make it. And this is from Block A. So Block A, there was only 3 Avers, right? So there might have been more, right? If we wanted to talk about the number of X1s that made it, there could have been a lot more Avers than there are now. But unfortunately, they don't tell us the exact numbers, right? Of course, all the other numbers could be bigger, but they only really show us top 16. Let's look at Block B. I think Block B is actually just worse. So in Block B, we can see Avers. There was only 1 Ave that went X0, right? And then, you know, once again, a lot of Avers aren't making it, at least. So this goes up to 39. We know there's at least 39 placements. So this only shows up 24. So 15 teams aren't shown. So there could be like just a lot more numbers. Again, we don't know. But from the ones that didn't make it, we can see that there's like 2 Avers already that didn't make it. And there were like 7 and 10 positions to make it. So that's really rough. That's really rough, right? So overall, like, diversity cut is kind of janky in that, you know, let's look at the real players who got screwed by this diversity cut. So Youthberg team. There was a Youthberg team here that brought Youthberg. So yeah, 7th place team, they brought a Youthberg. Unfortunately, you know, I remember there was a Youthberg that made it, right? So yeah, so 3rd place team brought the Youthberg. So your third deck was just done, unfortunately. I remember like a Bantai Bandung team, right? We saw them. They brought an Ava, right? And they also brought Ava would be their meta pick, and they brought 2 decks that shouldn't be picked as much, right? They brought a Jeweled, which, okay, showed some results, but it's definitely not a top tier deck. But they also brought a Maelstrom, which is definitely not a top tier deck. It is like a really like average deck. That was their 3rd deck, but you know, unlucky for them, right? So Ava, there was 1 Ava, but there was a Maelstrom deck that went X0 as well. So 4th place team brought a Maelstrom. So technically their 3rd deck did them dirty, right? But luckily for them, there was no Dredule that went X0. So they squeaked in because they also had a decent ranking. They were at 9th, so they made it in 12th. But if there was like a Dredule or something like that, dang, you know, that's like run over. So you're like, diversity cut it's like the way I can really explain it is that it's a big band-aid for it's a big band-aid that sometimes doesn't really work because sure, you're seeing a bunch of different decks at top cut, but the reality is that, you know, it's not a good reflection of the format. And because your official tournaments are run like this, then it does impact, like, it has extra layer of randomness, right? Normally, if you were to prepare for a tournament, you'd be like, let's pick the best decks, what we think is to be the best decks, and play them. And this is pretty much what the English format does. But then in Japan, to kind of encourage like just a different number of decks, I'd like to say, I think that's the intention behind it. You know, they have this weird cut, but it really doesn't. It really doesn't, you know, do what it's intended. It still adds this randomness, and like, to be fair, right? Not everyone will like it. But let's put it that way. Not everyone will like. We have to go, guys. We need someone to play a bad deck, right? For us to have a chance to make it into X0, make it into top cut. Then that is a feels bad, and true. If another person brought that and went X0, then, you know, unlucky. If you went X0 and didn't need it, then you're bringing like just another bad deck, right? And make your chances of actually winning the tournament less. But then all three of you brought like good decks, but then randomly faced against another good team as well. And when you, like, one of you would definitely lose. Then, you know, you fall into the X1 bracket with a very little chance of making it. And then you just, you know, good job on wasting money traveling to this event or spending time for it, right? You just, like, first round, let's say you could meet your other team that you're practicing. You're both bringing the same lists. That's pretty much it, right? One of you all is losing, right? And one of you is going to go to the X1 bracket, and one of you might as well just go home and play side events. That's kind of it. Yeah, so doesn't really do what I just feel like it doesn't really do it justice, right? It's just awful. It's honestly just awful. I'm thankful that we don't have diversity cut. Let's kind of look at what is the current format, a good reflection of the current format. So we have the Trail Vanguard Cup. Let me move this a bit smaller. This is basically like a VGCS, right? I went to this one as well. There were 45 teams that went. There was no diversity cut for this event at all. So, you know, you're free to just bring your meta decks and play. And as you can see, this is the prelims, right? Gandiva, 25 teams brought it. 22 teams brought Chronojet. 21 teams brought Ebisu. Though that doesn't change that Ebisu is the best deck in the format. It's just a very hard deck to play. 15 teams brought Ava. 11 teams brought Messiah. 7 teams brought Hexa Orb. And then only 6 teams brought Zorga. And 5 teams brought Avantgarde. So basically, a lot of the diversity picks, which is basically these three, because Japan still rates Messiah quite high. There is not many of them out of the 45, right? And then if we go to the top cards, pretty much just like Gandiva, like they cut to top 12, by the way. This is so that they do it in a top cut where like the X0s skip the first round of top cut, and then like the non-X0s play it out, which is like the bottom 8. And that encapsulates all the X1 teams, and I think some X2 teams make it too. But then, like, you know, 4 of those teams will then play the X0s, and then goes on for that. So there'll be another 4 rounds of top cut. I think it's fine. I think it's great that X2s make it. It kind of reflects our current English scene where X1s make it. So that's good. That's good. But because there is no diversity cup, you see the 10 Gandivas, 7 Ebisus, 6 Chronojets, 5 Avas, definitely not 11 Messiahs. I think this is 2 Messiahs, and then the rest is just others. And then the others, you have a Megalanozochi, Drajuled, Wellstra, Avantgarde, and Hexa Orb, right? But you can see that like the meta is like way better, or like way more formed here. What are the best decks right now? Well, definitely the most popular ones are just these 5 at least. And the format is very, very clear. And technically speaking, after playing in both tournaments, I do feel like the Trail tournament did have a lot more players that were better, right? I did play a lot more casuals at Daivangasai, which is fine, right? Because Daivangasai is like a much more bigger tournament, more than just a tournament, actually. Just a lot of people will be going there to just have fun. Trail, you'd have to kind of go out of your way to go and like join this, and it'd just be a lot of people who are dedicated to playing the game, and thus they will understand the game a bit better. And because there's no diversity cut, then you will be bringing the better decks, and you know, etc. Just learning the format more. So definitely there were I feel like there was just better players there compared to Daivangasai, you just kind of, it just means the results from like these events, at least in Tokyo, because Tokyo does get probably the most players. Probably Osaka as well, but you know, we can always just check the player counts. Because 135 players joining is still pretty decent. And then, of course, it's 45 teams, but there's still a lot of people for how do you say it? It's like a community-run event, right? And then the overall results, you can see the winning team, Ava, Gandiva, and Ebisu. Basically the meta of the meta, right? This is kind of the meta team right now. I think I tried clicking on these before and they weren't working because, I don't know, decklog in Japan is just kind of weird lately. But I think you would have seen most of these lists already. Also, Willista, you know, those Festival Collection cards weren't allowed just because it's pretty hard to get them. Second place team was an Ebisu, Ava, and a Messiah deck, right? Third place was Ebisu, Chronojet, and Ava. And then fourth place was Gandiva, Chronojet, and Hexorb. So this is the only team that did not bring the Ebisu slash Ava combo. They actually didn't bring any of them. They just brought Chronojet, Gandiva, and Hexorb. But this is definitely in the minority, just from the top cut, right? But then we can kind of look at the best 8. What is the best 8? Messiah, Chronojet, Gandiva. Actually, guess not. Guess they're not in the minority. Then another Gandiva, Messiah, Rejewel, Chronojet, Gandiva, Wellstra. And then a Chronojet, Ebisu, and Gandiva. Right, so actually, just what happened to the Avas? Well, there was only like 5 Avas, right? But all the Avas seem to do pretty well, right? Top 3 had Avas in them. So maybe it's not a tier 7 deck anymore, guys, right? That's just how it is. And then actually you can... Well, no, actually you can probably see it. This was a bad thing. Okay, so here's where the Avas are hiding. Here's where the Avas are hiding. There was more Avas here. So an Avantgarde, Gandiva, and Ava. Ebisu, Gandiva, Chronojet, Ava, Ebisu, and Gandiva, and then Ebisu, Gandiva, and Megalon and Nozochi. Right, so overall in the trail event, we definitely see way more Avas, and you know, because of no diversity card, obviously, there's this. It's kind of a more indicative result. And yeah, that is pretty much my rant on why diversity cut kind of sucks. But I'm really thankful we don't have it in the West. Please never bring it over. I'd personally prefer us just bring the best decks, learn the matchups, and then not have to worry about, you know, our top cuts being weird. Just play the game and do well, right? Do well. Let me know what you guys all think in the comments below. Do you guys actually like diversity cut? Do you think it sucks? Let me know. I'll be happy to read all the tours. And do you think Ava is a tier 7 deck? Maybe. Also, I guess, thank God we don't have Ebisu. Wow. That's kind of the one thing that's popped up when we were talking to Japanese players. Wow, you guys don't have Ebisu? Must be a great format. Right, so thank you. We don't have Ebisu. We just currently have the Chronojet. The wonders of Chronojet and dominating anything. But we're going to get set 10 soon. So that might change. So yeah, let me know in the comments below. I'll see you all next time talking about more random stuff. All right, bye.